Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror thriller TV series named Creamerie, Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins in the not-too-distant future where a deadly virus swept across humanity, wiping out 99% of all men. The remaining 1% gradually disappeared over time. With that, Earth entered a new era, one ruled entirely by women. The few men who managed to survive were reduced to mere breeding hormone machines, exploited until there was nothing left to give. It's all starting from 8 years ago when the virus first emerged. At the time, men began experiencing strange symptoms and went in for medical checkups. Just a week later, they started coughing up diabetic blood and then dying in droves like pieces of shit. Within a month, barely any men were left. Women, on the other hand, remained completely unharmed. Fast forward to the present day. Inside a grand cathedral, a choir performance is underway. In the audience, a group of women watch in admiration, including 3 Asian women, Alex, Jamie, and Pip. Alex, with the shortest hair, stands on the left. Jamie, her sister-in-law, is in the middle. Pip, the shortest with the longest hair, stands beside them. Suddenly, the mayor steps onto the stage and declares the male-dominated era is over, and this is a woman's world now. The crowd erupts in applause, everyone except Alex. She challenges the mayor's claims, arguing back at every turn. In the heat of the moment, she accidentally tosses her drink at the mayor. Unsurprisingly, the officer in charge immediately drags her off to the detention chamber. Fearless, Alex lashes out at the mayor in front of the officer, calling her a power-crazed lunatic. Enraged, the officer shoves Alex against the wall, only for the tension between them to explode into a passionate brawl that quickly turns physical. Meanwhile, a lottery machine begins to spin on stage. Since the virus outbreak, reproduction has relied entirely on sperm banks. Each year, a ceremonial lottery is held to select women eligible for insemination. This year, Jamie is chosen as the lucky one. Back in the detention chamber, Alex and the officer lie on the ground together, their tempers cooled and their bodies spent, gearing up for another round, until a knock at the door interrupts them. Left with no choice, the officer follows protocol and injects a suppressant into the back of Alex's neck. Alex is returned to Jamie's farm, tied to a bed for safety. Pip scolds her for making a scene, but the drug leaves Alex groggy and unresponsive to the criticism. Jamie heads to the government clinic for her mandatory health check, which is a requirement to qualify for pregnancy due to the limited sperm supply, while Pip prepares refreshments for an upcoming meeting. Jamie, though already a mother, is still considered in peak health. It's worth noting, any male baby born now has a 100% mortality rate. As Pip bends down to pick up a dropped dessert tray, the mayor and a doctor walk into the room, launching into a heated debate about whether the priority should be quality or quantity in the next generation. The atmosphere turns awkward. Pip, a low-ranking government worker, idolizes the mayor, but the mayor barely acknowledges her presence. As the meeting begins and officials file in, Pip quietly slips away. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Alex awakens groggy and confused. The drug in her system leaves her dependent on sticky notes to remember what to do. One note leads her to the bathroom, where she discovers instructions to locate a lump on the back of her neck and use a scalpel to remove the implanted blessing orb. At the same time, Jamie is at another woman's house, tending to her personal needs. After their encounter, Jamie returns home and begins searching for Alex, who has vanished. Alex, however, is already elsewhere, sitting silently beside her catatonic mother. She tells her that she's been blessed again, but that she's strong enough to endure the government's punishments now. Still, her mother remains unresponsive, eyes blank, staring straight ahead. Something is clearly wrong. Frustrated, Alex leaves, dragging a bloody hand across a government poster as a sign of protest, clearly suspecting the authorities are behind her mother's condition. Meanwhile, Jamie and Pip hop in the car to look for Alex, but just as they start the engine, they hit something. Nervously, they get out to check, fearing the worst, that it might be Alex. Suddenly, they hear her voice from behind, startling them. But if it wasn't her, what did they hit? They inch forward and flip the body over, only to freeze in shock. It's astonishingly a man. Pip checks his face to see if the beard is real or glued on. Just then, the man opens his eyes and grabs her wrist in a panic. Startled, Pip reflexively hits him, knocking him out cold. The 3 women haul him into a storage shed. Jamie and Alex decide to treat his injuries and hide him. If the government finds out about him, he'll likely be executed, and they could all be imprisoned. But Pip, the by-the-book bureaucrat, wants to report him, thinking there might even be a reward. After much arguing, Pip finally relents. When she catches a glimpse of the man's badly injured thigh, she faints at the sight of blood. After a tense night, Jamie woke up to find a government vehicle parked at the farm. It turned out that government officials were there to inspect her childcare environment. Pip, seeing the opportunity, was about to report this when Jamie urgently begged her not to say anything, fearing that her chance of getting pregnant might be revoked. Just then, the officials turned toward them and greeted the two women, allowing Pip to hold off for now. The two nervously answered the officials' questions. Jamie explained that she ran a small dairy farm and Pip, her good friend, lived there with her but wasn't involved in the farm's operations. Despite this, Jamie emphasized that Pip was still part of their family. It was clear from their words that they were a team. However, when the subject of Jamie's sister-in-law Alex came up, the two women hesitated. Alex, who was supposed to still be undergoing punishment, had removed her blessing orb on her own and was hiding a man. They couldn't let the officials discover any of this. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Alex was rummaging through the man's belongings. She found a torn-up membership card from a laboratory with the man's name, Bobby, on it. She also came across a torn page of a newspaper, and the woman in the photo was unmistakably Alex's mother. As Alex froze in disbelief, Bobby quietly regained consciousness. Alex's chicken scream startled the three women inside the warehouse. Jamie quickly tried to cover it up, claiming it was just the sound of cows, but both women knew exactly what had happened. The officials, however, were intrigued and said they'd go check on the cows. In truth, Bobby hadn't said a word to Alex. He was simply trying to leave. Knowing the officials were nearby, Alex tried desperately to stop Bobby from leaving. This only angered him, and he violently grabbed her by the neck. The sound of the struggle caught the attention of the officials, who rushed to open the door. They found Alex sitting on a box, pretending to be out of her mind. The officials, seeing that her behavior fit the description of someone still undergoing punishment, didn't suspect anything. After subduing Bobby, Alex had tied him up. She questioned him about the photo, asking why he was connected to the woman in it and what he wanted from her. Bobby only responded that he had spoken with the woman in the photo, but refused to reveal anything else. Later, Jamie was informed that there had been an issue with the childcare environment inspection. She opened up to Pip, telling her that her application had been rejected. Pip tried to comfort Jamie while watching the officials, both women unsure of what had gone wrong. In a fit of frustration, Jamie accidentally yanked the phone cord out, prompting Pip to resolve to investigate further. Pip went to see the mayor, praising Jamie as a qualified mother and suggesting that the officials might have made a mistake with the paperwork. She presented the recent health check results, proving Jamie was perfectly fit for pregnancy. The mayor appeared calm, but her inner panic was evident. She told Pip in a measured tone that she would look into it, then quickly turned away without another word. Back at the warehouse, Alex and Bobby had settled down. Alex revealed to Bobby that she was the daughter of the woman in the photo, which made Bobby lower his guard. He asked about Alex's mother, and she told him that 4 years ago, the government had implanted something in her brain, causing her to fall into a complete state of dementia. Bobby sighed deeply, expressing regret that Alex's mother had once been a key to something, though he didn't elaborate. Alex then asked Bobby how he had survived. She had always believed her mother was crazy, thinking there were no more surviving men. But Bobby firmly told her that her mother was not insane, and that in fact, many men had survived. They had just been hunted down ever since. Meanwhile, Jamie, in a panic, asked her doctor if she had been disqualified from the pregnancy program. The doctor firmly denied it, saying she fully supported Jamie's ability to conceive. Pip, again, found the mayor and was met with a blunt answer. Jamie hadn't just been disqualified. Her qualification would be permanently revoked. The mayor even threatened Pip to stop meddling, leaving her speechless. Feeling trapped, Jamie vented her frustrations by smearing cream, as though trying to release her pent-up anger. Just then, Alex burst in, telling her that she had gotten answers from Bobby and that both the government and the mayor would soon fall. Jamie didn't stop to think about Alex's words, but instead, a bold idea struck her. She rushed to the warehouse, determined to use Bobby's sperm to get pregnant. Bobby, however, just stared blankly at her, unmoving. Thinking he wasn't excited enough, Jamie began performing a striptease on her own. Just then, Pip arrived and pulled Jamie out of the warehouse. Jamie, crying in despair, confessed that she had lost her son before, and now her chance at pregnancy. Why was having a child so difficult? Pip, heartbroken for her friend, urged Jamie to return to the house and then went back to the warehouse with determination. After a while, Pip returned, handing Jamie a cup containing the sperm. Pip's eyes were frantic, as though she had done something she wasn't proud of. Meanwhile, Alex analyzed Bobby's situation on the chalkboard, trying to figure out who was hunting him. Just then, the camera shifted to a powerful-looking female driver who was examining a surveillance photo. Bobby was in the frame. One morning, Jamie and Alex were out feeding the cows, while Pip seized the chance to sneak into the warehouse. She wanted another cup of Bobby's hormone juices. After all, there was no guarantee that Jamie would get pregnant on the first try. But Bobby demanded they untie him first. He was tired of being treated like livestock. Their voices rose in argument, drawing Alex to the warehouse. Pip quickly lied, saying Jamie had sent her to check on Bobby. Bobby didn't correct her. Alex, not particularly interested, turned and went back to work. Once she was gone, Pip and Bobby struck a deal. He would provide his essence in exchange for something simple, a hot shower. After work, Jamie and Alex headed to town to deliver milk and pick up a few supplies. The local convenience store owner, another woman selected for the pregnancy program, was behind the counter. She loved children, and when she saw a little girl come in, she instinctively wanted to give her a lollipop. Through tears, she confided that she'd failed the evaluation again, her 5th time. But when she heard Jamie had also lost her qualification, her tone softened. She even tried to comfort Jamie, unaware that Jamie had already found a way forward. Once they finished shopping, Jamie and Alex got back in the truck. Alex had even picked up some beer for Bobby. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Pip was nervously escorting Bobby to the bathroom, weapon in hand. As Bobby began to undress, his muscular build left Pip visibly flustered. Her heart was clearly racing. Hands trembling, she passed him the collection cup, eyes darting in every direction, wanting to have a baby with this muscular man. While waiting for the others to return, Pip sat by the fridge, keeping an eye out. When Alex wasn't looking, she pulled the cup from the fridge and passed it discreetly to Jamie, urging her to use it quickly while it was still fresh and juicy. Oblivious to the situation, Alex headed to the warehouse with food and beer for Bobby, dressed in an absurd white and pink pajama set. After a few rounds of drinks, a tipsy Alex began treating Bobby like an old buddy and casually untied him. Bobby didn't hesitate. He grabbed his bag and headed for the door, claiming he just needed a walk and wasn't trying to escape. But as soon as the door shut, he hobbled away with a limp, only to fall flat on his face after a few steps. Reality hit hard. There was no way he could get far in his condition. Defeated, he returned to the warehouse. This time, Alex was waiting for him with a knife, warning him that she wouldn't let him leave. He was the only one who could prove her mother had been right all along. Bobby reached into his bag and pulled out a SIM card, explaining that it had been given to him by a friend who was hunted down like he was. The SIM could help locate others, surviving men. He said it was proof that Alex's mother had told the truth. He asked for her help. That night, Jamie prepared for a second round of artificial insemination, but the face of the convenience store owner kept flashing in her mind. In a moment of compassion, Jamie made a decision. She would give the sample to the store owner. In the dead of night, she left the container at the shop's door with a note, then slipped away unnoticed. The next morning, Pip brought Bobby some clean clothes and took the chance to sneak a peek at him while he slept. As she left, she ran into Jamie, who instantly jumped to conclusions, using hand gestures to suggest that something had happened between them. Pip panicked, denying everything, insisting she didn't like Bobby. But as she walked away, a thought struck her, and she spun back toward the warehouse. It turns out Pip had gone to tell Bobby exactly that. She didn't like him and felt absolutely nothing for him. But before she could finish, Bobby backed her into a corner, his intentions clear. Just as things were about to escalate, Alex burst in, interrupting them with a phone in hand. She told Pip to leave, then inserted the SIM card into the phone. No contacts appeared, just a single anonymous message. Rise, a call to revolution. After being kicked out, Pip returned to her government job, only to witness the convenience store owner being publicly executed. In the mayor's hands was a milk insemination tube, and inside was Bobby's unmistakable essence. Pip panicked and immediately called Jamie. The government had discovered Bobby's existence and was planning to raid the farm. Sure enough, by the time Pip got back, the government agents had already arrived. The group hid behind the barn, exchanging bitter complaints. Bobby's exposure was the result of Jamie's misplaced compassion, and hiding a man was a capital offense. Just then, Bobby's phone rang. A man's voice came through, urging him to rise up and resist, and giving him a set of coordinates to a safe location. With things escalating this quickly, staying put was no longer an option. The group decided to head for the coordinates. What they didn't know was that a cold-blooded female assassin had been eavesdropping on their call, and she too was now heading in the same direction. When the group reached the location, all they found was a lonely hill. No men, no signs of life. This had once been a quarantine zone at the start of the outbreak. Beneath that hill lay the ashes of countless men who had been burned alive. As they stepped out of the car to dump their wastewater, Bobby was stunned to see that Alex could somehow pee while standing, but the shock was short-lived. Suddenly, a red laser dot appeared on Alex's forehead. Bobby shouted for her to duck, and they both sprinted back to the car, yelling for Pip to drive. The assassin, gun in hand, slowly approached with a chilling smile. Paralyzed with fear, Pip started driving in panicked circles. The assassin just stood there, watching them loop around like a bizarre carousel. Luckily, Pip snapped out of it just in time and managed to drive them to safety. As the assassin faded into the distance, Bobby spoke up gravely. He knew her. She was the one who killed his friend just 2 weeks ago. Before they could even process that, the assassin reappeared, this time chasing after them in a car. Pip tried to speed away, but the road ahead narrowed. There was only one small path left. It turns out they had stumbled into the annual Period Festival. Bobby threw a blanket over himself to avoid being seen. They tried to turn around, but a carload of festival goers blocked their path. With no other choice, they drove into the event grounds. At the entrance, a staff member offered car washing and valet services. Since Pip was a government employee, she had no choice but to comply. Thinking fast, Alex claimed that Bobby was her grandmother. With the blanket still covering him, Bobby was helped out of the car, just barely avoiding exposure. While the crowd celebrated, the group was filled with unease. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is often the safest. They quickly came up with a plan to disguise Bobby as a festival mascot. Just as they finished the disguise, the assassin arrived at the festival. The trio tried to blend in while searching for an exit, but soon got caught in the chaos of the mayor's parade and were separated. Alex, hiding behind a mascot costume, spotted her mother dancing alongside the mayor in doggy style, along with the officer in charge she had once hooked up with. She ducked down in panic, trying not to be seen. Elsewhere, Jamie was desperately looking for the others. Mistaking a stranger for Pip, she was momentarily disoriented. Then, in a surreal moment, thought she saw her late husband. Drawn in by the memory, she wandered off in a daze. Meanwhile, Pip ran into a co-worker who questioned her presence at the festival. Thinking she was about to be reprimanded, Pip began stammering out an excuse, but the woman just smiled and reminded her that she was scheduled for First Moon tent duty. Relieved, Pip rushed over to the tent where she handed out gift bags and heating pads to girls experiencing their first period. But her relief was short-lived. She spotted the assassin approaching and quickly told the girls to grab their own supplies before running out of the tent. In a panic, she ducked into what she thought was an empty tent, only to find herself face-to-face with the mayor. The mayor warmly invited Pip to celebrate the festival with her. Pip didn't dare refuse and nodded nervously. Back at the Ferris wheel, Jamie had followed the man she thought was her husband. A young girl beside her interrupted the moment. After just a few words, Jamie suddenly started vomiting. The girl, unfazed, told her she must be pregnant. Jamie was stunned. She once had a son, but he died during the disaster. The memory overwhelmed her with grief. The girl tried to reassure her that the government will take care of everything. Jamie ignored the brainwashed child. When she finally got off the Ferris wheel, the vomiting snapped her out of her daze. The man she had followed wasn't her husband, just someone who looked vaguely similar. Meanwhile, the mayor began brainwashing Pip with a mix of promises and threats. If Pip delivered Bobby by sunset, she and her loved ones would be spared, and she'd even be promoted to a high-ranking official. But if she failed, they would all be executed. Pip wavered. She needed to talk to Jamie. But before she could, chaos erupted. Alex had found her mother and brought Bobby along, only to be spotted by the assassin. Bobby dashed into the Hall of Mirrors with the assassin close behind. When the others entered, both were gone. The mirrored maze was disorienting, but eventually the group reunited and spotted Bobby. But the assassin got to him first, knocking him unconscious and dragging him away in front of their eyes. Thinking fast, Pip used lipstick to mark the mirrors and help them navigate. Thanks to her quick thinking, they found the exit. Outside, the assassin was just about to load Bobby into a car, but their own vehicle was still being washed. Without hesitation, Jamie leapt onto the assassin's car, leaving the others behind as they watched helplessly while the car sped off into the distance. They scrambled into their own vehicle to follow. Pip was cool under pressure. Instead of flooring the gas, her first move was to buckle her seatbelt. Just as they were closing in on the assassin's car, Pip suddenly slowed down because they were entering a residential area. Alex was fuming, practically coughing up blood in frustration. Meanwhile, inside the assassin's car, Bobby was begging for his shitty life. Jamie, crammed in the back, searched frantically for anything she could use as a weapon. All she found was a rusty shovel and a dose of tranquilizer. The car soon stopped in front of a house. The assassin dragged Bobby inside, while Jamie and Alex found themselves arguing at a fork in the road. Alex suggested turning left. Pip turned right without a moment's hesitation. Inside the house, a showdown was brewing. Jamie crept in, shovel in hand. The assassin had her gun aimed squarely at Bobby. Jamie shouted for her to stop. The assassin turned and fired, missing but hitting a crate nearby. Out of bullets, she tossed the gun aside and slowly closed in. Jamie tried to swing the shovel, but the assassin caught it midair. Terrified, Jamie screamed in a chicken voice and bolted through the house like a horse, while the assassin followed with terrifying calm. Cornered, Jamie fumbled for the tranquilizer and stabbed wildly, and by sheer dumb luck, she landed a hit. The assassin collapsed. Jamie quickly dragged Bobby's heavy muscles out and jumped into the car. On the drive, she apologized for the pregnancy bombshell. Bobby, now an accidental father-to-be, was speechless. The car was filled with awkward silence. Elsewhere, Pip and Alex spotted a piece of Bobby's clothing on the road. Pip immediately guessed that Jamie would be resting by the nearby creek. Sure enough, the four of them reunited there. As the sun began to set, they climbed into the car and debated their next move. Jamie mentioned that the assassin only used tranquilizers. She hadn't intended to kill Bobby. Before they could make sense of that, they realized something was off. Pip had driven them straight into a government ambush. They were captured on the spot. Pip didn't resist. Her eyes were locked on the mayor, who stepped out of the building. The mayor pulled her into an embrace. It was clear now, Pip had been swayed. She had turned Bobby in exchange for a promotion to the upper ranks of the regime. The mayor treated Bobby like an honored guest, giving him a luxury suite and inviting him to attend a formal banquet. She even offered him a seat in parliament. Back in the prison cell, Alex and Jamie were desperately trying to escape, twisting their clothes into makeshift rope. Alex looked at Jamie with hopeful eyes, but her hands slipped, and she chucked the entire bundle across the room. Just as Alex opened her smelly mouth to complain, Jamie doubled over in morning sickness. Right then, the door swung open. The mayor entered and tossed them prison uniforms. Alex pleaded with her to spare Jamie because of the pregnancy, but the mayor only sneered, mocking their efforts, their sacrifices, and Pip's betrayal. As a final insult, she ripped the necklace from Jamie's neck and walked out without another word. That night, Pip received a lavish evening gown. Dressed to the nines, she looked surprisingly radiant. Her capture of a living man had turned her into the star of the night. Bobby, now cleaned up in a crisp suit, sat silent and unreadable. He had learned that he'd be taken to the execution grounds at dawn, his fate practically sealed. Around him, high-ranking officials whispered, clearly eager to get to know him better. Back in the cell, Alex and Jamie had changed into their prison clothes and were awaiting punishment. The officer in charge came by to visit Alex, once her lover, now a guard. Desperate, Alex begged for her help, but the officer was powerless. With tears in her eyes, she turned and left. At the banquet, Pip approached Bobby and said she did it for her own good. Bobby let out a bitter laugh, and the two began to quietly bicker. The mayor, seeing this, mistook it for a reconciliation and tried to stir the pot. She leaned over to Pip and whispered that she knew Bobby and Jamie hooked up and Jamie was pregnant. Hearing that, both Bobby and Pip burst into laughter. Seeing that, the mayor flew into a rage and decided to turn dinner into a twisted performance. First, she ordered Pip to tongue massage Bobby. Pip hesitated but obeyed. Then the mayor demanded she use her juicy tongue. Humiliated, Bobby tried to stand up, but the mayor slammed him back down as the crowd erupted in cheers and laughter. Overwhelmed with shame, Bobby tried to escape, but the women overpowered him and pinned him to the table. The mayor, caressing Bobby, coldly gave an ultimatum. Either Pip put on a full-blown, passionate show with Bobby in front of everyone, or her friends would be executed, and every reward she'd been given would be taken away. Just as Pip was reluctantly preparing to go through with it, she noticed something. The mayor was wearing Jamie's necklace. In that instant, it all clicked. The mayor had clearly already laid hands on her friends. Enraged, Pip exploded with curses, but letting out her anger came at a price. She was quickly dragged away by the officer to the operating room, joining Jamie and Alex in line for the government's brain modification procedure. At that moment, Alex's surgery was just beginning. The officer barged in and ordered the doctors to switch targets, start with Pip instead. As they prepped, the officer made her move, knocking out 2 guards from behind, then slapping Jamie awake. Pip, seeing the commotion, asked the officer to go easy, only to turn around and knock Alex out cold herself. The officer handed Alex a gun and told her to shoot her in the shoulder, faking an escape scene. Alex gritted her teeth and pulled the trigger. Under the cover of night, the 3 escaped the facility. Pip, genuinely remorseful, tearfully apologized. Jamie and Alex tore into her with harsh words, but in the end, they forgave her. The trio decided to go back and rescue Bobby, but they'd need a plan first. In an abandoned warehouse, Jamie and Alex changed out of their prison uniforms while Pip armed herself with a stun baton. At dawn, the mission began. The mayor was personally escorting Bobby to a secret execution site when her Tesla car was stopped by a Ferrari horse. Just as she began to complain, the car door flew open. Pip was there, and she shocked the mayor into unconsciousness. Jamie rushed to untie Bobby, but he was visibly unwell, mentally spiraling. He refused to go with them. As they stood frozen, unsure what to do, the mayor suddenly regained consciousness and pointed a gun at Bobby. But this time, no one backed down. All three women stood in front of Bobby. Pip stepped up first and even wrestled the gun from the mayor. Alex quickly grabbed the stun baton and shocked the mayor again. Amid the chaos, Bobby ran off. A car approached in the distance. With no time to spare, the group dragged the mayor into the forest. Watching the mayor get rescued by her guards, they vowed to find Bobby before she did. Bobby, now alone, returned to the quarantine zone he had heard about on the phone. But again, there was no one there. Just as he began to lose hope, a door opened. He stepped inside, empty. Moments later, Jamie and the others arrived, but Bobby no longer trusted them. He refused to go with them. Before they could react, the assassin appeared behind them to flex her good figure. This time, though, she didn't attack. She calmly said she was here to protect Bobby. Before she could explain further, the doors and windows slammed shut. A white gas began to pour in. The assassin opened a ventilation shaft, urging the others to escape first. But it was too late for her. As she collapsed, she murmured that Alex reminded her of her mother, never knowing when to give up. Alex then noticed a symbol tattooed on the assassin's wrist, identical to the one her mother had, but the assassin would never explain its meaning. The group escaped through the ventilation system, but halfway through, Bobby got stuck. Desperate, they shook the pipe until it broke loose and hit the ground. Crawling out of the duct, they were stunned by what they saw. A row of naked men were strapped to chairs, hooked up to bizarre machines that endlessly extracted their hormone juices over and over again. Just then, several female soldiers stormed in, followed by none other than the mayor and a government doctor. They finally revealed the truth. They had been stockpiling fresh sperm to prevent a shortage. By controlling reproduction, they had seized power, not just over the nation, but potentially the entire world. Bobby stared at the broken men, unable to process what he was seeing. The quarantine zone was nothing more than a trap. The mayor laughed her saliva off, saying, "As long as one man shows up, more will follow." The phone calls were just bait, and the voice behind them was known to everyone. Then, someone stepped out of the shadows, someone they never expected. It was Jamie's husband, Alex's brother, the same man Bobby had believed was executed. He walked straight to the mayor and tongue massaged her passionately. Jamie was devastated. Alex stood frozen. Her brother looked them in the eyes and mocked them, repeating the very same line they'd heard on the phone. "Rise up, my friends!" Bobby screamed at him, calling him a traitor before being dragged away. Jamie, Alex, and Pip watched in horror, their fury burning. That's a wrap on Season 1. After the explosive juicer finale, the government's dark conspiracy has finally come to light, but many questions still remain unanswered. We've learned that both Alex's mother, along with the assassin, are part of a mysterious organization dedicated to protecting men. But who exactly are they? And what are their true intentions? Throughout the series, we've seen the government wield disturbingly advanced medical tech, from the mind-numbing blessing orbs to the brain-drilling procedures. With capabilities like that, one can't help but wonder, was the outbreak really a natural disaster or something far more sinister? This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.